But this is my first collection, 9-bar blues, stories from an ancient future, and they're all short stories. I like to write stories about ordinary people in extraordinary situations, and each story is in its own time period or its own world. No two stories is really alike. That's just how my mind is. A lot of them are original short stories. I have 2 novelettes in the collection, and I'm working my way to, writing a novel length project. So that's my way of kind of testing the waters for myself. And I just really excited about this collection because it's a lot of what I want to say to the world right now, if that makes any sense, So if you want to know what I'm thinking, read my stories. So the short story I'm going to read from today is actually one of the novelettes. It's just a small excerpt from it, and it's called Head Static. The first section takes place in a club. I'm not going to read that because I have to do a little more, I have to basically break it down to read that part. But I'm going to move us out of the club scene. And the 2 main characters are to say that they love music would be an understatement. One of them actually lives, and exists for music. If there was no music in the world, she wouldn't be able to breathe the air on our planet. So we'll just put it at that. Her name is Claire, or her DJ name is Claire E.T. And her partner in crime is a musician, also a DJ named Animus. She whispered the first blues in a young slave's ear back in a Tennessee cotton field, offering the blue note like a blessing. The child's tongue had struggled for the notes, his face streaked with sweat. There among the wild oaks and pecans, the ngoni and the kora were no longer even nymphs. They had to bend the flat sieve from the catgut, made the body from pine. She'd shown the child where to tap the wood and how to make it whine like the great wolf river. A flagrant violation of her mission, the choice was the only natural one she could see. She was sent to observe the creators, not to collaborate, instruct, or direct. But she couldn't resist because she remembered hearing the rhythm in Mali, the power it held and the hope it contained. So much had been taken from these people, flung across the waters in waves of sound that would bring even her elders to tears. Language and lore, their song and their spice, even their own mother's memory. She had wanted to give them a gift, a song of themselves for themselves, the new music, perhaps the great going music, to serve as their sword and shield. A music she hoped would free not just them but her as well, a song to rend the world apart and sing it back again. She had never seen a tree such as this, its limbs curved and bent upward as if outstretched to touch the sky. Claire wanted to crawl beneath its branches, lay her head down and call her journey to an end. It had been so long since she first arrived on the planet, gathering songs with the others. So long since they had been scattered, Claire forced out, exiled, and abandoned. She'd broken the first covenants. Start low, go slow, catch fire, rise higher. Instead of taking notes, she had added her own. Fascinated by the diversity of sound, the life stories behind the music, unlike her sisters, she'd chosen collective creation over collecting creations. For years she wandered alone until she found Animus, whose laughter and sheer hunger for music and life made her forget the judgment of sisterhood. But the song changed, as they often do. Words rewritten, notes rearranged, whole verses forgotten. She found herself seeking her sisters, curious about what they had made of their journey. Then one day she woke and discovered that she could barely hear their distinct signatures humming in the back of her mind. And when the last notes faded, she called out with her own, but no one answered. Claire had to rely on instinct, on the faint trail of her sister's old signatures. Feeding was like a whole body vibration. Music transmitted energy to her body, forced her muscles to contract and relax hundreds of times per second. In this state, she could absorb the flow from other moving bodies, dancers whose rhythms kept echoed and flowed with or against the rhythms of sound. It was while feeding that she had felt closest to her sisters. Now rattled by their silence, Claire desperately followed what remained of the others' trail. She collected pieces, tiny fragments of sound, but she still had not completed the song's last sequence. The great going song, the one that captured the true spirit of a world, its story, its many stories, the call that would bring their journey to its end and return them back beyond the stars, fuller, richer, finally ready to hear their own world anew. In the waning light above the glittering dust of the desert, the burnished sky looked as if it too bent to the tree's will. Its roots rose out of the pink soil, entwined like a nest of snakes, then sank below. Claire and Animus stared at it, wondered how far the roots reached beneath the desert's embrace. What do you think? 50? 60 feet? Claire shrugged. I'm not sure what this is, maybe further. She placed her hand on the tree's smooth trunk and listened. Underground is underground because it must be. Travelers had to negotiate sound in relationship to emotions, people, their stories, the way dancers negotiate space through choreography. She and Animus were caught in an old dance of their own making. You, me, we are the rhythm, she said. Just moments in time. It's been a long time, girl. We're good together. Claire wasn't so sure whether it was her or Animus who needed to be convinced. She raked her nail across the trunk of the tree, pressed her palms into the bark, listened to the sounds hidden beneath wood. Why did we come here? He asked, staring at the opening sky. To reveal the marvelous, she said, her voice far off, as if she was chanting. We are marvelous. I thought we were happy, Claire. She wasn't sure how to answer that, the question he had not asked. The journey proceeds in all directions, she said wearily. Her hand still gripped the tree. It's time I go home. Animus sighed, hemmed between the mountains and the sea. What did that brother say? What brother? She asked. Her ears, her eyes, the skin on her palms straining. It had taken her a while to get used to this man's sense of humor, how he would enter a conversation sideways, then lead you to a serious realm. Animus was trying to throw her off. She wouldn't let him this time. She had to concentrate. She was certain the music she sought was somewhere out here. The one with the big old bug eyes, Animus was saying. Claire frowned. Do you know how many big-eyed brothers there are in this world? Animus laughed. The fiery one you like to read, the one that wrote the book about Bill Street, didn't have nothing to do with Bill Street, that book? Oh, Jimmy. Yeah, Baldwin. Your Hallelujah chorus man? What did he say about home? Home is not a place, Claire. It's an irreparable condition, she said. Yeah, Animus said. It's irrevocable. I love you. So for me, Claire, you're already home. There ain't no reason to be out hunting for something else that's not going to come. There's nothing else to return to. We got everything we need together right here. No, not here, Claire said sadly, and shook her head. She pulled away from the tree, wiped her palms on her pants leg. It's out there, near the sea, across the sea. I don't know, it's somewhere. It's where I began. She walked toward the open car door. Stay or follow, she said, leaving Animus to stare after her. It was the same choice he'd always given him. It was the same choice she'd always given him, right from the start. Stay or follow. In the beginning, there was Jack, and Jack had a groove, and from his groove came the groove of all grooves. If you know this, you can say it with me. And while one day viciously throwing down on his box, Jack boldly declared, "Let there be house," and house music was born. Music was more than a reflection of culture. It was the sound of souls moved to their core. There were some clubs Claire and Animus would go to where the sound was so pure, the music made the dancers levitate. Of all the music he had seen born, house music was Animus's favorite. You could enter a club, the warehouse, the loft, the music box, powerhouse, and hear Philly, New York, Chicago, Detroit, DC, all on one floor. All textures, all styles. If the music fit in the set, it was the set. And after a while, the set was not complete unless Claire and Animus was there. Ron Hardy, Tracksman, legend after legend, Claire remembered them well. There were no seats, no chairs, no signs, just one green light and pulsing sound. Back then, Animus purchased 2 copies of every record, original version of sampling. If he had a new record that no one else knew about, he'd black market the whole label so none of the other DJs could bite his shit. They were all traveling incognito, deep underground, especially after the backlash to disco. whole screaming crowds of youth throwing black music and pals, a bonfire of souls, compressed memory. A house emerged from melted wax, rose like a phoenix from disco's ashes. It was one of those things that when you heard it, you knew something special was going to happen. When Animus's signature first made its way across the waters, Claire knew she had to be there. She was in Okai, cooling her heels in the whispering sea, despondent, long after the trail of kin had gone cold. She thought she was so close that time, but she hadn't been physically near one of her sisters in nearly 400 years. The absence pained her now more than ever. She was having a hard time rejuvenating the cells in her body, and the time between her feeds was growing longer and longer and longer. Claire was losing her appetite for music, her grip on this world's sound, the old curiosity that once propelled her through concrete jungles, sand-colored villages, and mountains was raining. More than ever, she was aware of just how alone she was in the world, cut off from those who truly knew her, or at least knew what she had once been. She was alone and very possibly dying in this form. At some point soon, she would have to return to the source, but without the others, without the full song, Claire was not certain she could do it. And without her sisters, the only one who could claim to know Claire was the man she cut loose once, the one she let go, she told herself, to pursue other songs, higher music. Thank you.
Mm.
Thank you.
That was beautiful.
I have read this before, but there is nothing like hearing it in your voice, Sheree.
Thank you. Hope it wasn't too long.
No, 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 no. That's amazing. I'm going to unmute everybody because I'm sure that there are questions. And then anyway, heck.
Sheree, I'd love to ask you the question of how you set the tone as far as music being like kind of like oxygen or like a life essence to the characters. What brought that? Again, knowing you're from in Memphis, I don't want to have a precursor to this. What brought that type of energy to these characters? I think the sentiment and is very profound. But what were your thought process in bringing that for the character structure for these characters?
She's muted.
Oh, heck.
I think you're muted there, Sheree.
I'm not letting anymore.
I think the seeds of Claire's experience is a little bit rooted in my own. Not just being in a place that loves music. I lived for almost over 20 years in New York, and there's music everywhere in the streets of New York. But I was having a conversation with a family member, and we were talking, and he doesn't have the same response to music the way I do. My response to music is very visceral. Music can literally change my energy or change my mood. It brings back very vivid memories. So like one of my earliest memories, and I just did a whole essay about that, was hearing Parliament, hearing Parliament, like the music like my parents listened to, and also listening to Led Zeppelin. So anytime I hear particular riffs or songs, I am taken back to Memphis in 1970s, at a particular block in North Memphis on Life Street or 7th Street in a very small little project. And it's like I'm time traveling. And so I'll know when I need to be inspired, when I need to be lifted out of sadness, like for example, during this pandemic, I have to turn off the news and I have to listen to music that lifts my spirits. And I can, if you have me connected to a machine, blood pressure, heartbeat, whatever, you can tell the difference in me. I feel like it's truly a healing thing. So I was thinking that that's just my response as just a regular little human on this earth, right? What if I needed music the way I need air? or the way I need food and water? What if, and I needed the variety of it. Because the other thing I was thinking about was the genius of humanity. Like, we create music all over the world throughout time, you know. Whatever culture you go to, I love to travel, which is one of the hard things about this pandemic. Not being able to travel, right? And I'm thinking, like, when will I be able to get on a plane again and go see a whole nother place and hear another language? But it's like, you know, we may have the same spices, but we don't use them the same way, right? The culture is the food, but also culture is the music, you know. And some places you can't take them, you can't pull their identity outside of their music, because they express their way of connecting to our world through that music.
Right.
That's part of what makes them uniquely who they are, you know. That's just one of the things I was thinking about. If their very existence depended on that genius culture. And I think about Black culture in particular. We are constantly innovating things. We're constantly having to, just because we want to, just because that's how we express ourselves. But then also I think it's a challenge, and also because of structural things. So you may have created music and then it gets mainstream and it begins to be used in a different way that maybe that wasn't the original intention. So you go in and you create another form. So we move from Negro spirituals, we're moving from gospel, we're moving on to, you know, to jazz and blues. We move from blues and jazz to rock and roll. You know, we're moving on to hip hop. You know, we're moving on to, you know, just everything is constantly evolving and never stays the same. You know, so I thought, what if you had a creature that needed that type of variety, was drawn to this planet because of that type of variety, and was able to extend their life force through the genius of the people, you know. So.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much. That was great.
Claire is so universal and human
I'm
because
on a Zoom call.
we all care about that. We all expand ourselves through music. And
Every culture on the earth, every culture on the earth.
yeah.
The first story in 9-Bar Blues called Ancestries is exploring throat music, throat singing. You know.
Oh, wow.
Non-throat singing?
I can't do it.
What kind of music?
The life. I can do the jump though. I can do the jump, but I can't make the sound come out. But each story, and that was the intention. I just realized I'd written a pile of stories and there were common themes through them. And one of the biggest ones was different forms of music, different genres of music. And then another one, if you're like, you know, into natural science, as I am, maybe insects. There's some bugs in every story in some kind of way. But definitely music is a big theme. And I think also relationships, particularly that between sisters, is explored in it. Hey, look at the pretty face there.
So I had a question. You know, I'm always fascinated with process as far as, you know, we create work and then how it's tagged in the speculative field, you know, science fiction, horror, fantasy. I've read the whole book. And I feel like, I just wondered, when you're writing, are you thinking in terms of anything other? And I kind of think I know the answer, but I want to hear you say it. Are you thinking in terms of genre, like what you're writing, or you just, you know, go from there and then shape it, and later on people go, oh, that's like that?
I think I just write the story. I mean, I don't sit down and say, I'm going to write a science fiction story now. Because if I do, it will end up being something else. Like I remember I did sit down and I said, oh, I'm going to write a romance, right? I thought I was writing a romance. It was a horror story.
How appropriate.
And that was on Deceased Policy Dream Book, which is like very, very dark, you know. So it's like there's love, and there's love, you know. So, you know, it's a happy-ish ending, you know, but it wasn't what I expected. It wasn't what I intended to do. So I think my my muse is very mischievous. So if I try to, create some kind of parameter, she's gonna do something else.
Thank you.
So I haven't read anything else of yours, but I was really struck by how lyrical or possibly musical the language is in this story. Is that common to all your writing, or is that for this story because it's so music centered?
I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. It may be. I hadn't thought about it that way. My voice is my voice. So I have been taught by poets for sure, and some of the best poets. Jackie Johnson was on here. She's one of my favorite poets. And so when I started looking for writing community, my first experience of that was with writers who did not particularly claim a single crown. They were prose writers, but also poets. They were poets who also wrote very persuasive, amazing, powerful essays. They were playwrights, they were visual artists, quilters. And so I didn't come from a school of thought where you have to have one particular vein and there's one way to tell a story. I'm thinking of the New Wren workshop that Arthur Flowers led in New York and Brooklyn. Of course, he came from the Harlem's Writers Guild with John Oliver Killens. He, of course, taught the griot workshops here in Memphis. I'm thinking of the Frederick Douglass Creative Arts Center workshops that I was first a student of in Harlem, and then became an instructor in 2000 to 2010. And all I can say is that I just write, and I try to capture how I see the world on the page as best as I can. It doesn't always come out, the way I may hope, but it's just my best effort at the time. So if it's lyrical, that's just how I write. It's just how I write. Yeah. I want what you're eating, Jackie.
No, you don't. It's a desperado meal. But I am having a really good tea.
Yes, thank you very much. Your mermaids.
Yeah, and I'm having a good tea. What's your favorite piece in the book?
Oh, I knew somebody's going to ask me that. That's like asking you like your favorite child or something. It just doesn't, you love them for different reasons. But
all right, so what's the three-headed mongrel story?
The story that kicked my butt
Mm-hmm.
is Madam in the Map. Madam in the Map. When I finished that, if you could have seen a hallelujah dance, I flung open my door. I looked both ways to make sure no one was walking their dog or cat or what have you. And I ran down the hall in thanks and praise because I was so grateful to be done.
Uh-oh.
Out of that space. It's one of the longer works, and it's told in different points of view. When I write different points of view, I'm very calm about it because it couldn't be any other way. So there is a river tells you the story. A statue tells you the story. Nathan Bedford Forrest's statue tells you part of the story. It's set on a Mississippi plantation initially, owned by a woman, and it's a time traveling tale. And the river and everyone is a part of it. And so when all the pieces came together, I was just so grateful that what I was experiencing, I was able to put it on the page. So that was the four-headed mongrel that got me. The one I had the most joy writing.
What's that name again?
Oh, Madam in the Map. A Journey in 5 Movements.
Okay.
A Journey in 5 Movements.
Okay.
And that's I put like the longer pieces towards the end, you know, just to help work with the stamina. My friend Andrea, she will put the long stuff up front. She don't care. You gonna read that beautiful prose. But I put the longer works at the end. And the one that I probably had the most fun writing was Shaniqua's Blues, or Another Shotgun Lullaby. That was fun. That was fun. I mean, it's some hard places to go in, but then it's like, it's the stuff that I love. I love a mystery. I love a quest. I love occult items. I love people picking up stuff they shouldn't and things happening. I love the truth behind the known history. You know what I mean? And I like stories where people find true friendship. You know, true friendship. And then they ask themselves the hard questions, you know. So I got to do all those things in that one story, you know. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I loved every story, but you know, I love The Dragon Can't Dance, because I'm a little dragon obsessed. I'm just, and that was, you know, that was like you doing your earth magical version of sci-fi.
Yeah, I'm gonna make it interesting. I'm not that interested in the machines and the technology as much as I am as the impact that the technology has on actual people. So, you know, and how it can go wrong. So those characters, they're still a part of me, and I'm actually working on the other members of her dance group. You know, they're different. Yeah. Because the story that's in The Dragon Can't Dance is from the main choreographer of the dance group, but there are 2 other members, and they have a very different experience than her. So, you know, I want her to kind of get rescued, but we'll see. She needs her sisters again. Those friendships, you need those relationships sometimes to rescue you from yourself. So I'm hoping to write that story and get my girl out of the situation that she's in.
I kind of feel like every other story in here you could do a novel on. I mean, always put so much depth in it.
From your lips, a good ear. Because my natural form is short, you know, it's short. But it's so weird because I can read. I love novels. I love reading other people's worlds. Though I'm not always the most faithful reader. I'll put it this way. I used to be when I was younger, and I would read every single word you put on the page. I would, whether I liked it or not, I would read it to the end and say, because I felt like I owed it to the author to read their vision from beginning to end, even if I didn't enjoy it. As I get older, my attention span and that life scale, I am a Libra, so you know the scale, I'm like, wait a minute, baby. So some books I have read, I'm thinking of one very famous book that's actually done very well in terms of critical acclaim, and I fell in love with the first third of it. And Clay knows what I'm talking about. I love the first third of this woman's novel. You could not tear it away from me. I was carrying it around. And then we got towards the middle, and I was like, what happened? And it was a totally different thing. And then it never kind of picked up again. So I just read the chapters that was about the part I liked and skimmed the other stuff and got on down. And I still like that book. Like, I didn't return it or anything. It's on my shelf. It's on the top shelf, actually, because I felt like the story she gave me in the first third of her novel was so cold, so amazing, so magical that I can take that with me. And in fact, that's all I'm going to remember, you know, and that's good. And there's some people, whole books don't do that. So I was okay with that one. But I do follow, especially like the kiosk novels. You know, they gone, we gone, the girl gone, she disappeared. That's those books that you pick up on your way. traveling, if there are certain characters that I really enjoy, I just stick with those and kind of, humor the rest of it, So.
Well, I mean, not everything grabs everybody all the time. I'm gonna tell you, there's not one piece in here that if you were like, I'm doing a novel on, I'd be like, yes, sign me up.
Thank you. Thank you. I got some little babies. We'll see if they have legs and walk. Others I put in the drawer. You already know that. They will remain in the drawer. But we'll see how it goes, because it's just that does my interest in these characters' lives take me 400 pages? You know what I mean? Like, I marvel at people who can write those big, beautiful, bold, big hip novels, 600 pages. I'm like, go. But you have to be truly fascinated with the world that you've created and truly into it in order to keep going on that long. I'm ready to tap out a little sooner than that. Yeah.
From things that you're saying, I'm thinking about how you put books together as an anthologist and an editor, and I'm thinking that there are probably some overlaps between the way you think about your own work and the way you think about an anthology.
It's interesting, because Deb and I are working on an anthology now, and it's harder for me to do my own work. I think it's harder it's always harder to edit your own writing, always, because you're too close to it. You're simply too close to it. Even when you let it get cold, very, very cold. Sometimes you're not able to see what other readers can see that's missing, or the gaps that are in it, or the things or the connections, quite frankly, that you might have not have been consciously aware that you were creating. To me, it's easier to edit other people's works because I'm not as invested in it personally. I didn't create it. So I can just sit back. The first time I read it, the first 2 times I read it, I'm reading as a reader, just to see how I experience it. And I need to be able to get through it and want to keep getting through it as a reader. That's probably the first thing that makes me want to keep a story. If I'm reading it just so that I can give them comments later, that's a sign to me that I probably shouldn't have that story in the collection, because I'm reading it as a courtesy versus reading it out of the sheer pleasure of the storytelling or the mystery that they've created for me. It's not pulling me through. But I also try to be aware that my taste is not always going to be someone else's taste.
Hold on a second.
And there are lots of stories that may not be they might not be my super favorite story in all the world, but they're really, really good. And I know that this story is going to make an impact, and it's going to be someone's favorite story, because you can just sense it. You know what I mean? And so I feel like as an editor, it's my job to include those stories as well, not just my aesthetic, but to have a sense that, this is a story that someone in this world, a lot of someone's in this world, is going to really need to read, and it's going to hit them in just the right way. And so I try to honor that. When I was working on 9 Bar Blues, it was very challenging in some parts, because I started to doubt myself, in a sense that you begin to wonder if what you found magical is going to resonate for other readers, And so I'm grateful that my editor is a brave soul, in the sense that there were things that I wanted to, I felt that they were too risky for me. They were too risky, and I wanted to tone them down or what have you. And he declined. He was like, nope, not gonna do that. I was like, but on page something, it has this on it. And he's like, no, leave it there. And that made me happy. So that was wonderful. I have to give a shout out to my friend Kiini Abura Salam, who's an amazing, amazing writer and visual artist who really, really just was so generously gave close readings to many of the stories. I don't know what I would have done without her. She was just fantastic. And so you must have some people outside of yourself to help you see the things that you can't see and ask the questions that you wouldn't ask yourself because you already know the answers, but you didn't put them on the page. But yeah, it was hard. I took stories and I put them in different themes, and I said, well, and then also you're wondering, because that's the time when I'm thinking about the audience. When I'm writing, I'm not thinking about the audience at all. And it was a good friend of mine, Liz Roberts, and also Andrea Hairston, who they're actors. And all of them, they're actors. They run a theater together for decades. And they were the ones that told me that, you know, when I was shifting from being so much in other people's heads and so many other writers' heads, because to be an editor, you have to almost erase yourself, and you're learning the other person's way of telling stories and the way of seeing the world, and you're trying to ask the questions and note the things that are honorable to what they're creating, and that's hard to do while you're writing your own, you know. So you have, for me, I have to separate them. And when I was coming back to my own voice and getting the other writers out of my head and out of my mind, I was very, very hard on myself, which I am anyway. This is just a natural thing. Very hard. A lot of artists are very hard on themselves. And they helped me realize that when I'm sitting down to create, that's the fun part. That's the open part. That's the there aren't any right or wrong way part. And I have to take the director or the editing self and tell them I love them and appreciate them, but this is not their time. You know, exit stage left. Right now, we are doing, we're in workshop mode. You know, the actors are here and we're just embodying the characters and we're playing with the blocking and we're working it out. You know, and we'll come back and do the the actual. You know what I mean? So. I used to, like in the 90s, I used to literally put on a different like little outfit because my friends did, like I dressed up to write. And that reminded me physically that I'm in the play mode. I mean, I had a boa that I got from somewhere that I would wrap around myself. It was like a black and blue green boa. And so you can't feel bad wearing a boa. So now you're ready to draft, right? You're ready to face the empty page with joy and not all the icons that you love and admire pressing down upon you, you know. So I just learned to separate that process. And so in the editing, I had to begin to re-enter that audience space where I'm like, okay, if you never read anything by me before and this was your first story, would you want to keep reading? Or is this something that would intrigue them enough where they can, you know, slip through? Even though I don't read anthologies or collections linearly, I look in the table of contents and I read the titles. And the titles that sound the most interesting to me are the ones I go to first, you know, and then I go back and, you know, and fill it out. But if someone was going to read it from page 1 to page last in that order, what kind of experience do I want them to have emotionally? And for this, I was drawing on the musical experience of being an appreciator of music. Music has a visceral effect. Stories have a visceral effect on you. And what moods do I want my readers to experience? If I take them into the dark, can I bring them back out into some light? I don't want it to be relentless. Trauma or what have you, you know. So the last story in the collection is probably the most whimsical because if you got to the last story, I wanted you to feel hope, joy, magic. So, yeah.
And there you have it. This is why. You are a master. Just explained everything anybody ever wanted to think about, knowing about editing, about writing, about putting it together. Thank you, Sheree.
Amen, amen.
Thank you all so much for sharing your day with me. as I figure out how to do a virtual book tour. I was like, they want you to write jacket copy, you gotta write, marketing copy, you gotta know how to do social media, you gotta look cute sometimes, I gotta do a song and dance up in this. It's like, now I have to know how to use all the technology of the earth. I'm like, my gosh, I thought writing the book would be hard. But it's we learn and we grow, right? We learn and we grow. And
Well,
I love this because I can see all your faces, and that's just cool. It's almost like being in a bookstore,
yeah.
Yeah.
I tell you, if you do your other appearances like you did this one, you don't have anything to worry about.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, hey, I see like this new stuff on here. There's a chat.
Yeah, there's a chat. What does the chat say? Yes,
Oh, yeah. I see.
you were great. You were great. Thank you. Thank you, Sheree.
Thank you.
Hold up that book again once more.
This is 9 Bar Blues, stories from
9 Bar Blues. And some people already have it. And the rest of us, I think, are all going to get it soon.
You can get it wherever bookstores are sold, wherever they're sold. You can get an ebook too.
I just can't get over how it feels like a record in the middle. I'm like, what? It's got like, what? I was looking for the CD to play.
Yeah, am I going to get it Kindle so I can get it right away, or am I going to wait for that absolutely lush physical book?
It's all on ebook, so you can get it on Kindle, Nook.
Yes, but you missed this beautiful cover.
I know, it looks so good.